Uh, this is my first time to join the discussion of the Baltic Forum. I'm very honored to have this opportunity to present my view here. And I thank the Baltic Forum very much for inviting me to attend this event. It is a very good opportunity to learn the views from Europe, from Latvia, from Russia, and even from United States. Here, I would like to present my personal view on the my view on the trilateral relationship among Europe, Russia, and the United States. I think, first of all, I want to say is that the three parties, Europe, European Union, Russia, and the United States are the three major forces in the world. They are very important. Actually, I think what kind of relationship among these three parties will influence the world system and influence the regional and the global affairs very much. So actually, with something happens in Europe, in the relationship between United Nations and Russia, between Europe and Russia, always occupied all attention from all of the world. And actually, I think the Chinese researchers, of course, the Chinese government, and also Chinese researchers and the public all pay a lot of attention to the interactions of the trilateral relationship among the three actors. But very unfortunately, in the past several years, we see some difficulties among the interactions among the three parties. I think at least the three elements influence that kind of relationship very much. The first is that I think there are something left behind the history. I mean, although the Cold War has ended many decades ago, but actually the mindset still influences us very much. It is not that easy to get that kind of compromise between the different groups of countries. And therefore, we think there are still some kind of conflicts among the different parties. And actually, I agree that the outbreak of the Ukraine crisis is a kind of accumulation of a lot of things of the past. So I think the parties, different groups of countries have to reconsider that kind of previous policy and how to enlarge that kind of accommodation of the international system and involve in the elements with different cultures, with different ways of development into that kind of system so that we can try to jointly develop the world in a whole system with cooperation and coordination policy among the elements. Secondly, I think that in the past decade, the world developed very fast with the economic globalization and especially with the development of that kind of new technologies. So many new ideas developed in the society, and a lot of new elements actually is emerging in the society. We see that the civil societies, even individuals can play bigger role in the international relations. That means major powers, especially countries, big countries like Russia, like United States, also face some kind of challenges to update their policy to the new development of the world system. And in alliance with that kind of very fast development of technology and the global, economic globalization, every country's bigger or smaller, face a lot of challenge domestically, just like China. China is also very facing a very quick transition of the society and trying to find the new areas to accommodate the different interests in that kind of society. That kind of very quick transition in the domestic society and the whole overall world society also influenced the interaction of major players. So to some degree, it also influenced the relationship among Europe, Russia, and the United States. Thirdly, what I want to say actually is the US role in the international system. The United States is still maybe call it the only superpower in the world system. Actually, the United States is the global hegemonic in the current world. So it seems quite clear that US have a kind of balancing policy in all areas of the world. If we look at the US global strategy, we may find that there are three major plays of the United States. The first is Europe, second is the Middle East, and the third is China. No, not China, is East Asia. So for a country, a global hegemonic, it wants all three areas keep some degree of balance. The powers in all these three countries keep some kind of balance. So in Europe, the United States wants the kind of balance between the Europe and Russia, and also want a kind of balance between within the European Union. For example, the balance between France and Germany. And also the United States is trying to rebuild that kind of power balance in Middle East. Of course, we can see there are some kind of readjustment of the power relationship in Middle East, even including in the conclusion of the agreement of Iran nuclear issues. And thirdly, in the Asia Pacific, we can see the same situation. The so-called rebalance policy strategy of US to the Asia Pacific. Actually, while the United States see a very fast rising of China, it also wants to have some kind of readjusted relations in Asia Pacific and to have a kind of balanced China, Japan, and East Asia countries' relationship in the region. So from all of these kind of elements, we may find that it's a very interesting development of the Europe, Russia, and the US relationship in this region. And in the future, it will be a further development. And of course, I don't think any side, any party of the relationship want to really have a break of that kind of interaction, or really want to see a kind of conflict among the three bigger parties. So it is quite, the three parties really need some kind of forum, some kind of platform for a calmful and a little bit relaxing dialogue So I think the Baltic Forum is quite a good opportunity for different parts to communicate their opinions on that kind of issues. So the second part of my presentation, I really want to say a little bit about China's perspective on its own position in the world system. I think China basically believes it is still a newcomer in the international system comparing with Europe, Russia, and the United States. So there are still a lot of things China want to learn, want to observe, want to watch in the development of the global system. So first, at the current stage, I think at least three questions are very important to China. The first is, what is the direction of the development of the international system? In the future, we will see a multipolar world, a unipolar, or some scholars call the no-polar system. What kind of power structure the major players want to build up in the whole international system? And I think China, with other partners of the world, is very actively involved into that kind of rebuild of the balance or that kind of power structure in the current stage. So this is, I think, the first thing very important, and for maybe this forum or the other forum to discuss. And secondly is that what kind of principles the world want to apply now or in the future in that kind of new system. Because with the development of the power structure, with the emerging of many new elements, especially many elements of non-government actors. So what kind of, the principles, of course, we have a lot of, inherited a lot of good principles from previous era, but what kind of new rules, principles we have to pursue in the future, especially in a world that globalization or of that kind of digitalization. We see that kind of cyber, this kind of new elements in the whole system. So what kind of rules will be different with previous? And in that kind of new environment, how countries, how government to respond to that kind of new development is the second very important topics. And thirdly is actually related, also related to the previous two, is what kind of mechanisms, institutions we want to update or reform currently or in the future. We, of course, the whole system was built after the World War II. It is still, to some degree, there are still work in some areas, but we also see a lot of shortcomings, especially in that kind of economic global governance. And even in that kind of area of security areas, we also meet a lot of challenges, especially from that kind of no-government actors, and how to make the United Nations more efficient to respond to that kind of challenges. So that is also a very crucial question for especially major players to think about of that kind of issues. So on the whole, I think we are entering in a new, to some degree, a new system of power structure and with many new elements. So in that kind of very critical moment, it is especially important for major countries to mutually respect the other side's interests and try to accommodate the other parties in the whole system and find a new way to coexistence and co-development, even to co-evolution to that kind of new phenomena of the world. So I would stop my presentation here, and thank you very much for listening.